welcome this morning. We are going to talk about how to utilize podcasting to build your network, your investor network. So, but before we do that, and it looks like we still have some people joining into the room. If you haven't done so already, be sure to check out passiveinvesting.com. You can check out our team there. All of our deals. We just released a deal, a car wash deal this past week. So, make sure to check out passiveinvesting.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to answer them. But let's dive into today's content. We're going to talk about how to use podcasting to grow your investing network. So I'm going to share my screen because I know if you're like me, visual is like you speak in pictures, right? It's easier to remember. So I'm going to let that pull up here. Here's my contact info. If you have any questions, you want to reach out to me. We're going to talk about, not only are we going to talk about some tips on how to bolster your leverage podcasting, both you building your own internal podcast, but also guest podcasting. We're going to talk about those things on how to build your network, but we're going to also talk about a framework on how to structure your podcast to kind of help with conversion. It can be conversion with call to action to people to come to a list. It can be conversion with them assimilating information and then taking action. We're also going to talk about some landmines that, the common mistakes that people make when they are conducting their own podcasts, but also guest podcasting that turn investors away. And then we're just going to talk about, again, how to streamline the whole process so it's a little bit easier for you. Now, if this is the first time we're meeting, my name, again, is Whitney Elkins-Hutten. I'm the Director of Investor Education here at passiveinvesting.com. And this is the whole reason why I invest in real estate is so I can get the 5 freedoms in life back. I can get financial freedom, time freedom, freedom of choice, freedom of location, and freedom to create an impact. I started off real estate investing in 2002, living, flipping, and house hacking. Didn't even know that's what I was doing. And then, built up a portfolio of fix and flips, and then eventually started buying and holding, and then got into larger scale syndicated real estate. Now, many of you, we've spoke on the phone, or we've met at a meeting. You understand, what I've done personally in my own portfolio, what I've done professionally, with passiveinvesting.com. But, a lot of the information that I bring here is lessons that I learned in helping scale a syndication business in 2 years. And in those 2 years, my first foray into as an operator in syndicated real estate, co-syndicated 26 deals, had grew the investor list by over 3x. But that's not the coolest metric. The coolest metric is actually leveraging education and guest podcasting to 19x the investor capacity. All right, so we actually have leveraged a lot of these things here at passiveinvesting.com. Many of you are familiar with us. We have 1.4 billion assets under management currently, with almost 29% ARR to our investors, and have made over $51 million in investor distributions. So here's just a little nugget of, again, information that I have learned personally and have put into play, both in building up my own podcasting and YouTube channels, but also lessons learned on going on other people's podcast. And really, we're going to talk about these kind of tips and tricks in order to build that investor network. Okay, because the net worth is in your network, right? So I always like starting off with the why. All right, we all know what podcasting is. Okay, I've touched on it a couple times already here, but why is this such a powerful way to engage investors? Well, when we go on other people's podcasts, we're actually doing what we could be doing what we call blue fishing. Okay, so instead of like going on all the real estate podcasts and everybody competing for the same investor, we could be selective in going on other podcasts and doing what we call blood fishing, where our investor is, but they're probably not expecting to hear from us on that particular channel. When we do guest podcasting, we need to make sure this is a great opportunity for us to do what we call match, step, and lead. So we need to be able to, we don't know that investor's background, right? Because they're not interacting on our platform. We don't have intimate knowledge about them. So when we go on somebody else's podcast as a guest, we need to match that investor where they're at, okay, physically and emotionally. All right. I mean, I know you're not going to be like on a podcast, you're not going to be like looking at them eye to eye, but like we need to understand like where are they working? Where are they in their investing journey, their financial journey? Are they married? Are they single? You know, how much time do they have to invest? We need to be able to match where they're at, match our conversation, help them take the next step forward. And then when they come into our ecosystem, lead them. And I'll give you some more tips and tricks on how to do that. Now, we also need to understand that, you know, there's a different type of podcasting. This is the one where I see a lot of operators doing. They're actually launching their own podcast, their own channel, much like here at Multifamily Investor Nation, to help, you know, with their branding, you know, so people know who they are. They learn about them. Okay, then you know they resonate with them, and then eventually build trust. Okay, that type of podcasting is again meant to create engagement and then eventually conversion. All right, so you can absolutely build a list this way, but it's the tandem of the two that you really want to start you know, dialing in. You know, how can you build your own, but also go out and put your platform on other people's platforms? But really, the whole point of podcasting, the reason why we do it, the end result is that we want to be known, we want people to like us, and we want people to trust us, especially in this business, especially in this market environment. We're going to do it because we want to expand our network, and it gives us an amazing opportunity to really humanize our experience and invite people into your world. Okay, because a lot of people, you know, they can go look at a website, but they don't really understand who the person is behind that business, right? We can put our bios up there, we can put our stats up there, but really people do business with people. So being on a podcast really allows people to get a glimpse of who you are. For those of you who are here, maybe you've done your own podcasting, maybe you actually have talked to investors and the investors said to you, like, I feel like I know you already because you have been on several podcasts and they've heard you in several different places. That is what you want, okay? Because now you're starting off your conversation with your investor at a higher level. All right. Well, so those are the whys. Okay, I think most of us understand the whys, but what's kind of an effective structure in order to build your own podcast, but also go on other people's podcasts? And so this is a structure that I use internally with conducting my own YouTube show at Passive Investing Made Simple. It's also how I try to tailor the conversation when I'm on other people's podcasts. Number one, you know, really, you're trying to start off how to build rapport. Okay, tell your journey a little bit. Why should that person listen to you? Why are you the expert? Now, this is beyond just spouting out a bunch of stats. This is really, you know, if you're going on somebody else's guest podcast, maybe talking to the person, the host, and saying, hey, you know, before we start recording, you know, tell me, like, give me, you know, a minute or two description about who listens to this podcast. And you're going to tailor your story to what that person wants to hear. Okay. Now, this is an error that I see a lot of people do when they're guest podcasting is they tell the same story all the time. And that's fine, but you can't just tell the same story all the time. You need to tailor your story to who the listener is. And so just asking that simple question at the very beginning with the host allows you not only to build a rapport with the host is like, man, this person is really about delivering amazing content to my audience, but two, you can actually connect with their audience much faster, right? So the second thing that we want to do when you're either doing your own podcast or guest podcasting is set yourself apart by discussing a point of view. What do you believe in? Or what is something that that person that's listening needs to start, stop, and continue, right? This is really where you're trying to start motivating them to action. Now, you're not going to get everybody 100% converted with your belief. People are either going to resonate or you don't. You're trying to find the people that do resonate with you. Or you want to help people understand what it is they should be doing, what it is that they're doing that they're getting in their own way. And then what are some of the things that they're actually doing right that they should continue? So again, those are two ways to introduce a point of view into the conversation. Now, I don't know about you. I am not the cleanest presenter. You guys know that. It's one of the reasons why I think people like hearing from me. That's one of the reasons why I get up on stage so often, is because, I feel like I'm having a conversation with people. But sometimes you kind of, maybe you stumble over the words a little bit, or a counterpoint of view gets introduced and you want the opportunity to clarify. Make sure that you actually insert in your conversation somewhere the opportunity for you to clarify any points before moving on. So this is an amazing opportunity, again, to reconnect with the audience, reconnect with the host. And it doesn't mean that you have to agree on whatever that belief is, okay? Whatever that point of view is, that's not what I'm saying. Just make sure that if a counterpoint's been introduced and you need to clarify, find a tactful way to do so. Because again, that's gonna build in that know, like, and trust factor. All right. Number 4, when you're discussing your point of view, you're clarifying, make sure to include, tackle the whys. Right? This is a framework. If you guys have been on any of my webinars, today included, I always start off with why. Why are we doing this? What could you expect at the end? Okay, what is the result that you should see? Okay, if you take this knowledge and put it into action. Okay, so now we've got the what, the point of view. Okay, if we need to clarify, we can. Then we talk about the why. Okay, why should you as the listener be, listening to what you have to say on your own podcast, or what you are seeing on somebody else's podcast. And then let's get into how to do it. Let's get into the how section, the brass tacks. Again, the things that you should do? What are the obstacles that you should avoid? Okay, and how could somebody know if they're getting it wrong? All right. So sometimes let me give you an example. I did a podcast recently where I brought guests on that were talking about whole life insurance. And everybody on the podcast were like, so should I get a policy? And I'm like, no, let's talk about who this is for and who it's not for. Okay. And moreoverly, if you are doing this, how do you know if you're doing it right, or maybe if you're doing it wrong? Okay, that really helps people, again, put knowledge into action, right? Knowledge is just power. It's potential power. It's putting it into action. That's where the real power is. And then number 6, framework, step number 6, make sure that you have some sort of call to action at the end of your podcast, whether it's your personal podcast or if you're on a guest podcast. Make sure to keep it simple and make sure it's a way that people actually have to connect with you. So one of the things landmines that I see is people are like, hey, you can find me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and here's my LinkedIn profile. And by the way, here's my website. And if you have a question, go here and email. You've lost the listener. The listener's gone. Give them one particular place that they can go. And on that page, maybe they fill out a short form, and then they get all of those other places they can connect with you. Keep it super simple, one call to action. All right. Now, guys, I'm happy to take questions because this is going to be a pretty short presentation, but if you want to go over to the Q&A box, feel free to drop in your questions and I'll handle those at the end of the show. But here's some tips for maximum education, right? Whether you're on your own show or on somebody else's show. And again, remember the focus here is all about building your investor network. So again, the more that we can create that know, like, and trust triangle, with a call to action, and doing it through education, that is going to help us. Now, so when we talk about max educating, let's talk about 5 things that we need to do. 1, we have to stay on topic, all right? Especially if you're on a podcast, it's super easy to go down rabbit hole and tangents, okay? So, maybe you're on a guest podcast, it's a little harder because the host will be directing part of the conversation. You can continue trying to pull it back to the topic at hand if you would like. But if you're on your own podcast, you are in complete control on keeping the topic, staying on topic. Make sure that you give a framework on how to make decisions. If you are asking somebody to take information and then take action on it, educate them on how to actually make the decision. And that's what, we largely do when we go through the what, the why, and the how framework. Okay, that's a little trick from educational instructional design that I learned in corporate training. Make sure that you leave room for the investor to engage how they want to with that information, and with you. Okay, so you can send them to one location, one landing page, but have several different ways that they can engage with you. Maybe they want to have a phone call or a video webinar, or they want to just, show up on weekly webinars with you for like a little bit. Make sure you have a few different ways for people to engage with you, and try to make it as exclusive and inviting as possible. If you can, try to keep your educational topics really short. Rapid learning, this is a whole principle. Rapid learning is trying to get through the topic in 7 minutes. Okay, that this forces you to stay on topic. It forces you to use a framework. But you could expect to go as long as 20 minutes. Just human nature, we are not designed to pay attention much longer than 20 minutes. So if you have something super important to say, or if you want somebody to take action, do your best to get the majority of it in the first 7 to 20 minutes. You can always expand. So if people want to hear from you longer, that's fine. But just know whatever happens in that first 7 to 20 minutes is what people are going to take home. And the last point here for max education is tell stories. People love stories. People love pictures. That's how we as humans evolved communicating, is through stories and pictures. The written word is actually pretty new. So having a huge screen or a deck with tons of words on it, you might want to kind of strip that back, and try to tell stories and prove your point through a picture. All right, now let's see. Let's pretend you've actually been a guest on a show. All right, here's a few tips on how to set yourself apart from other people, other guests, and really open doors to, again, expand your network. Because it's not just about talking to the people on the show that are listening to the show. That host can also be an advocate for you to get on repeat shows, or maybe they have somebody, podcast hosts talk. Maybe they share a guest. Maybe they can refer you to another show. So here are some things that I love doing post-show to set yourself apart. Number 1, ask them immediately after you're done recording, how you can help them out. A lot of times people ask for like a 5-star review. Maybe ask, hey, would you like to have additional guests on your show? I've got my amazing network of people. I'm happy to connect you. Tell me what kind of person you're looking for. And then do it. Do it pretty immediately. Then there's also kind of like the random act of kindness that I like doing is, even if they don't ask for additional guests, I like sharing 3 or 4 people in my network with them. Just be like, hey, I just wanted to connect you guys together. Feel free to chat and see if you guys would be a good connection to do a show together. All right. Now, also be sure to follow up at a later time, maybe in like 3 to 4 months, and see if they would like to do a next interview with new topics that their audience might love, and give them like 3 or 4 different topics to choose from. Okay, people may take you up on it, but that's fine. Just keep a list. Keep tabs of your follow up, and then follow up again another 3 to 4 months later. Because maybe you're in the financial, maybe you're like talking about finances a lot. They just had a bunch of financial guests on, or if you're in multifamily space, they maybe just had like 3 or 4 people on in the multifamily space, and just be like, well, I'll follow up again in a couple of months. Maybe we can talk about multifamily then, right? So just keep in touch. All right, guys, I see some questions coming in. I am happy to address them, but this is your invitation to action. Be sure to go to passiveinvestingwithwhitney.com. If you would like to see some of these principles in action, there we can get on a one-on-one call and discuss your goals. You can get free access to the Passive Investing Made Simple Masterclass and boot camps, and priority access to our deals. Guys, thanks so much for taking the time today and joining us live. Don't forget to check out passiveinvestingwithwhitney.com, passiveinvesting.com, and Multifamily Investor Nation Con. All right. Let's see, I got some questions here. I'm a beginner and honestly don't know where to start. Can you offer some tips on where to start? So if this is in relation to podcasting, Tanwir, and hopefully I got that pronounced your name correctly. Where to start is you can start in either place. Okay, using podcasting to build your network. I think a lot of people find that if they start their own show, YouTube show, and this is a great, a great thing. You can do some education shows, all right? Then you can also bring on guests as you meet people at real estate meetups, conferences. If you already have investors, highlight one of your investors. Really what you're about is sharing knowledge, education, and telling stories. You can start in either place, but a lot of people feel more comfortable, if you've never been on shows before, starting your own show, kind of getting that dialed in, getting your persona dialed in, your frameworks dialed in, your cadence of speaking dialed in. And then you can go out and just ask people that you interview, like, hey, do you know of any shows that might want somebody like me to talk on? You'd be surprised. I do podcast swaps all the time with people. So, and it's sometimes easier to do a swap if you have your own show going already. But again, it's just like networking. That's what you're trying to do here. Another way to kind of get started in the space, especially getting on other people's podcasts, is you can pay. There's like companies out there like Outlier Audio, Podcasting You. I'm not advocating for any specific one, but you can pay to get people on your show, but they're going to want to have, if you have something going or you already have a network built, it's probably going to be a little bit easier to get on your show. Is there any good answer on timing a podcast cycle? Once a week, once a month? How often is good in your opinion? All right, so I look at podcasting as a way of always having something to invite people to offer. So for those of you who have gone through my education, like all the webinars that I've done on education, we're constantly come back to always having something to invite people to offer. That I think most people are really wanting to hear weekly. That's kind of like a good cadence that's worked for me. Bi-weekly is a little long, but whatever it is, whatever your schedule's going to be, stick to it. That's where people get lost in the rub, is if you are weekly for like 2 or 3 months, and then you go bi-weekly, then you go monthly, and now you go back to weekly. You're not going to have good data coming in. So what can you commit to? If it is doing an amazing show once a month, start with that. Okay. If it's an amazing show bi-weekly, start there. And then you can always go more often, because as you, again, work out your frameworks, work out your cadence of speaking, you might be able to record multiple shows now in one day. Okay. And then, have your content built out for a quarter in one day, potentially. Okay. So we do everything weekly, and we have multiple shows. We have Multifamily Investor Nation. We have our Self-Storage Investor Nation. We have our Passive Investing Made Simple show. And then I do my boot camps on a monthly basis. Okay. So whatever it is, pick what works for you and then just stick with it. What do you think is more important in promoting your podcast, subscribers or downloads? Now this is getting into marketing, okay, which is not my forte. I'm more on the education side, like what is that conversation that we can have with that person, the listener, in order for max impact and max engagement to eventually get them to take an action, okay? Engagement and conversion. All right, what you're getting into is more marketing. Now that said, I think the downloads, tend to have a little bit more impact in the algorithm. And if you're going to try to get a high level guest onto your show, they're probably going to want to see X number of downloads. So let's just say I'm trying to get, I don't know, my favorite actor is Ryan Reynolds. I don't know why I would have him on the show, but maybe for him to come on a podcast, he only does podcasts that have 400,000 downloads a week. Okay. That might help you get those larger guests on the show. All right. Now, subscribers, that is an indication of how many people are staying in tune with your information or receiving your information automatically downloaded to your phone. And then you also have your ratings and reviews. That plays into the algorithm as well. So you need to have, from a marketing standpoint, you need to have some sort of methodology to tap into all of those different areas, but for different reasons. Okay. Now, again, what I'm talking about here specifically, you've got somebody already listening. How do you get them to take action in the most efficient manner? All right. Will you please show the podcast structure slide again? Yeah, there you go. Is this presentation recorded? Yes, this presentation is recorded. So you can look for that link on our Multifamily Investor Nation YouTube channel, but in YouTube, and then it'll also be recorded and I think posted out live too. All right, guys. If you got another question, be sure to go over to the Q&A box. And as always, I like understanding, was this helpful? If you could go over to the Q&A box and let me know that as well, that would be great, because it's really with your feedback that helps guide what I'm able, what kind of content I put out there for you. Awesome. Woohoo. Yeah, glad that this was helpful for you guys. Thank you so much for the feedback. As always, you can reach out to me. I'll throw my contact slide up again. You can reach out to me directly, especially if you'd like to learn more about what we're doing at passiveinvesting.com. And anyways, that's what I have for today, guys. I look forward to seeing you all at Multifamily Investor Nation Convention here in June. I'll be there speaking on stage, but also, helping moderate some of the sessions. And so I look forward to seeing you all there and meeting you live. Have a great day, guys.